Welcome to the Profits in Pajamas podcast. I'm Danielle D, or Coach Danni D, and I help women to create luxury brands by creating processes and tightening their branding. This is where we talk about how to build your business in a way that allows you to work with ease and enjoy your life. My happy space is spending as much time as humanly possible in my pajamas. And I want to help others to find their happy space while still running profitable businesses. So get comfortable and let's dig in. Hello, this is Coach Danny D, and I'm here with the Profits in Pajamas podcast. And I'm here just to help people find that space where they are living a life that is fulfilled. They have a successful business, they have a successful personal life, and they really are living in their fulfillment, leaving that grind culture, leaving that sense of being, overworked and overwhelmed and finding their joy. So, I want to talk about the slow time. Because, as entrepreneurs and as we look at Instagram and everything, we see those are everyone's highlight reel. And that's not, some people, can put a negative connotation to that. I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that we want to celebrate successes. We want to celebrate how we are growing and doing great things. But the reality is that the way that business is set up and the way that business is portrayed sometimes in social media is not the same thing. And I see a lot of business owners get frustrated because they're expecting, I call it the ramen noodle business, just add water and it's supposed to just automatically be successful. And that's not how business works at all. Um, Most businesses, you know, s- studies show that most businesses, I think it's like 5 years or something it takes for a business to become profitable in most cases. So that's not talked about because we just see someone, come on the scene and then all of a sudden they have this, huge launch and they're millionaire. And the reality is that's not how that works exactly. And a lot of times it's not that that person, I mean, there's some people that are deceptive and that's a different conversation, but it's not that in most instances the business owner is being deceptive. It's just that we weren't paying attention. We started paying attention 5 minutes before they became successful. And so to us, it looks like that person, popped up successful. But, I have a circle of business owner friends and I have a circle of business owners that I follow and, have seen their journey. And it was not overnight, and nor do they portray it to be, but that's our perception because that's the way we have received it, right? So I don't feel like it's necessarily like sometimes people say, well, you know, it's deceptive how people talk about business or people don't talk about the reality of business. I don't know that that's true. I think that a part of it is you might not have been around for their work period, their growth period. You may not have been there for that. You may have only encountered them at their final stretch of, I mean, and I'm saying final stretch, there is really no final stretch. You're always evolving, but you may have caught them right before they hit it big, right? And so you don't know the story, the history, the struggle. Me and one of my friends talk about, those late nights, those 4 a.m. Crying sessions. You may not know anything about that because you encountered them at a different phase of their story. I say all of that though, just to say, it's not like that. Business ownership is not like that. They're going to be ups, they're going to be downs, they're going to be slow periods, and that's all throughout the process. So if you pay attention, and I implore you to pay attention to um, big business, not just, entrepreneurs, not just businesses or success stories in your industry. Pay attention to big business, pay attention to business news and what goes on with those businesses. And you can see even big businesses with huge funding and um, years of, notoriety, even those big businesses have falters and fall offs, that they are dealing with, that there may be a change in the economy and that changes their profits, or their projection for profits moving forward, right? So that's a part of business. Business is ebb and flow. There, it's typically not consistently, I'm winning, I'm winning, I'm winning every day. I won today and tomorrow I might not. And next week I might not again. And then I might have like a huge, win and, rinse and repeat, right? There are things that we can do, of course, to make it more consistent, to capitalize on the opportunities around us, but it's still the nature of the beast, right? So, what do you do in those slow moments? And what do you do when things are not going the way that you may want them to go, or it's seeming a little bleak? The account is seeming a little low. If you're a phone call person, y'all know I'm not a phone call person. If you're a phone call person, the phone ain't is not ringing like it was ringing, right? What do you do in those slow periods? And so I'm a, dip into a few things. I've, told you before, I am open to anyone and all beliefs, but I am a Christian. I believe in God. And so I'm gonna there some of that is coming. So if that's not your thing, um, I respect that. But I excuse me, I don't want you to disregard, you know what I'm saying? Because you don't have to have that same belief system, but that's only a part of what I'm talking about. But it is important that regardless of whether or not your, faith is in God, you got to have faith in your process. You have to have faith in staying the course, right? So, what do we do in those periods where it's slow? So, one thing that I want to say, I saw this video on TikTok recently and I shared it on my personal page, and I may share it. I may put the link in the show notes so y'all can see that video if you're interested. But I saw a video on TikTok and a gentleman was talking about the phrase ye of little faith. And he was talking about how he had misunderstood that phrase for so long. And I really liked his perspective on it because he said, you know, we're talking about a disciple walking on water and God saying ye of little faith, but it took so much faith for that person to walk on water, right? And we always talk about that there's, faith of a mustard seed. Faith of a mustard seed is enough. And what he said was, it's not that we have little faith because God has already told us that little faith is okay. Um, it's that our faith does not last long. And that really stuck with me because that's what happens a lot of times as business owners. When we get to that slow period, we go into panic mode. And that's not the answer. We go into panic mode and we start trying to force things because we're nervous, and I've been there sitting there like, Lord, come on. That, something needs to happen right now. I understand that there's slow periods, but maybe it's been a little slow, a little long, and we're human and God knows that we're human, But in those moments, we start to, take action, right? I'm doing air quotes for those of you that are listening to the audio and not the video. We start to take action and we start to move and we start to do these things. And not saying that we should not um be acting in our business, but if you have a plan, just because it's taking a little longer than you thought does not mean you go disrupting the plan. And a lot of times that's what we do. And then we create situations that we shouldn't have. Maybe you start, marking down things that you really shouldn't be doing because you got the business, but now your profit, the way your profit's set up, you probably were better off without, getting that business. Or maybe we start saying this is not working. And then, you go back to planting seeds. If you plant a seed, you got to let it grow. You can't just dig it up, right? So we get into that panic mode and we start making panic decisions. So, what I want to, kind of impress upon you, one is be faithful to your process. And if you're a faith believer, be faithful to what God has promised. So don't don't get into that panic mode whenever things are moving a little slower than you think. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't be working. So, typically, what I do in those moments is I go back to working on the business. I go back to making sure that I'm, dotting my I's and crossing my T's and everything on the business. Am I, what ways can I better connect to my ideal client? What are some of the things that when I was busy, I wrote down and said, you know what? I've been hearing this a couple of times. I got this question several times. And so if I got that question several times, I mean, even more people probably had that question, so I need to add that to my FAQs, or I need to change a process so that this is clearer. All those types of things are the things that we need to be looking at in those moments. So sometimes, they say the idle mind is a devil's workshop, right? Sometimes you need to find other things to keep you occupied so that you can stay the course. And what I found personally is every time I, instead of going into panic, because, that's a natural response. And I mean, I still have those moments where I'm like, okay, this is not feeling good. But when I start to feel myself going in that direction, I redirect myself to, okay, you got all this stuff that you're supposed to be working on. And one, it distracts me from having the feeling of panic. But two, it never fails that when I start focusing over here, the inquiries start rolling in. It never fails. Like as soon as I'm hit finish with whatever I'm working on and I look over here and I'm like, "Oh, there go the people." So work on the bigger picture things that draw people in. Come up with your list of things to work on in slow periods so that you're already prepared, that when okay, I have nothing booked this week, you pull out that list. Because if you already have it ready, it's so much easier for you to pull out that list and then just get to work. The other thing, you know um I do this as a part of my annual or my biannual retreats for my business, a SWOT analysis. So that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You should have identified some opportunities. And what are you doing to capitalize on those opportunities? So, opportunities would be like if you have a seasonal business, what things happen in that season? How do I then draw in business for that season? Or another way to look at opportunities is, you know, what is another group that I can partner with? What's and how do I connect to those people? So, for example, I try to mix up examples. I know I have a lot of balloon people here, and I can give a great balloon example, but I try to mix up examples so that there are other people in the audience as well. But let's say you are a um a fitness instructor, and as a fitness instructor, you want to get maybe you are, a fitness instructor that does private lessons for CEOs, right? So now you want to get in touch with those people. Well, maybe you need to join a women's business group because that's where they are. So that's considered an opportunity. So what are you doing to capitalize on those opportunities? One, to make sure you have less of those slow periods, but two, that's the time to sit and strategize. You need to have a strategy. You can't just, you know, sit back and just wait for business to show up. You have to have a strategy about how that works. So when you have that nervous energy or you feel like you need to be doing something, you need to be making that phone ring, that's the way to do it. Don't do it as a knee jerk thing because that's when you make bad decisions. Just, hands down, that's when you make bad decisions. Don't do it as a knee jerk thing. Do it as a planned thing. Have a plan. This is how I'm going to approach this. And that way, you know that you're still working the plan, even when you don't feel like the plan is working, you're still working the plan. You're still, getting the most optimized in that plan. So create a plan, be strategic about how you're going to move. And as you continue to move, make sure your actions are in alignment with that plan and not emotional based on your um your nervousness about what's going on currently in the business because it is natural. It's going to happen and you will drive yourself crazy if you fluctuate internally the same way that business fluctuates externally. So putting that on you, have faith, create a process, create a plan, have faith in that plan. If you are a believer and you believe that God has given you an assignment, have faith that He does not give assignments, that He does not give you everything that you need for. And those things don't always come when you want them to come, but they come at the appropriate time that you need them. There's been so many times that, you feel like, I mean, just in this week alone, there's been so many things that have happened that I had put something in the universe and kind of counted it out because time was a ticking and it was not happening and felt as though, well, you know what? You tried that thing, it didn't work. And then the moment that I, thought that that was a lost cause, I get an email. Here you go. So just be faithful, be faithful, be strategic, be thoughtful and mindful of how you're moving, but know that there are going to be moments. Those moments will happen, and that's normal. Don't don't feel like, oh, I'm doing something wrong, what have you. That's normal. You have to go through that process. Now, I do want to give the caveat. That is if you have already put a plan and everything in action. Now, if you just sitting there and waiting for the phone to ring, but you have not done anything to garner the phone ringing, then you need to get a strategic plan. You need to have a strategic plan in place. You need to be very intentional about how you are. Um, one, you need to know who your ideal client is. Two, you need to be intentional about how you are approaching them, how you are attracting them. And three, once you are being intentional about that, you need to trust the process and know that what you have set in place is doing its job, and give it time to do its job. Don't say, "Oh, well, I did this," and you did it like one time and you let it sit for like 5 minutes, and then you are, saying it doesn't work. Don't keep digging up your seeds. Let your seeds sit, let your seeds grow. And if over time, I'm using plant analogies like I'm a good plant person or something. If over time you see weeds in your garden, then you can pull the weeds. But we're not digging up seeds. We're going to let them grow. If we realize, oh, well, this one looks like it's drying out, then you might need to water that one a little bit more. So you may need to adjust, but we're not throwing everything out. We're not digging everything up. So I'm gonna leave you with that. If you are in a season where, you feel like nothing is blooming, give it time. Give it time. Give it time. And make sure that anything that you're doing in that season while you're waiting is watering, feeding, nourishing that seed, not disturbing it, not digging it up, right? All right, guys. I'm gonna go. Um, Next week we have an amazing, amazing, amazing guest that's coming on talking about a topic that I absolutely love. We're gonna be talking about mental rest. So I definitely want you guys to tune in next week for that. Um, yeah, y'all gonna love it. Okay, so see you guys next week. Thank you for listening to the Profits in Pajamas podcast. I hope you got some great tips to start working with ease. Want to stay connected? Follow me at Your Workflow on Instagram. For more information about building your luxury brand, register for my upcoming luxury brand workshop at CoachDanniD.com.